Okay, so I'm gonna go out and come in as my own personal.
Okay, great.
Okay, see you in a
Great,
minute.
thank you. Okay. Damon Tinio, Conservation and Planning Board. John Erickson, Building Inspector.
Here.
Police Chief Dave Kersey. Officer, I think Dave said there was an officer coming in.
Yes, Nick Erskine.
Is that Nick? Okay, thank you, Nick. I think that's everybody that I'm expecting tonight. So just as everybody's aware, the governor extended the executive order concerning the open meeting for public places. We are still allowed to meet virtually. This meeting will be allowed public questions, comments, as long as you are acknowledged by the chairman. If you're not speaking or asking a question, we ask that you keep your phone on mute so that way I can have clear meeting notes so I can do our minutes. This is being done via Teams, as was posted on the town's agenda. Really, there's only one thing on the agenda tonight, and that is to discuss 106 Millville Street. So Andy, as chairman, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. The issue at hand at 106 Millville currently is the filling area of material, earth material, with neighbors having concerns for their wells. Board member Tom Fickner went out there to the site with the neighbors one day this past week. Tom, could you please describe what you saw and what happened?
Well, we just, along with Kathleen, see if I get all these names right. I'm going to test my memory now. Sylvain, and then Dana, and I believe, is it Wally, Kathleen? Did I get that right? So we met with, and also with Lonnie Tinio. We'd gone down to take a look at the back area of 106 Millville Street and the concerns that the neighbors have with regard to the work that was done there. They essentially kind of walked us through and pointed out the areas of concern with regard to the structure that was built and how it was built, and along with the concerns for the erosion that appears that structure or that development may have created in the back area there, at least in the back of one of the yards. You could see where there was some apparent increase in water that you could see coming up at points. In addition to, it was pointed out that the development work that had taken place apparently damaged a particular piping structure that was in place for water flow between ponds, and that's created some issues. And then there was some, they were kind enough to walk through the back there. I didn't get a chance to see the area that I think we call Little Pond, that's in the back of Walter's property, but essentially got an idea as to how the water is coming through, and the silt that's coming down off of the big mound, and how it's now down at the water level there and traveling through along the grounds there, and looking at some of the buildup in the film. There were some pictures that I took that I sent actually just today. I don't know if everyone has seen them. I sent them to you, Andy, to Alan, and to Missy. And I also had texted that short video that I had taken with regard to the water stream and the concerns with how that was impacting the environment down there. So that was in general what was discussed, and I know I'll let Lonnie speak a bit if Lonnie's back on to some of the points that were raised, and how Lonnie was looking to potentially address the situation, not only just from the Board of Selectmen's perspective, but I think overall as a group, from Board of Health, Selectmen, or Select Board, Conservation, Building, whatever groups here are involved that can potentially help to remedy what's been done there at that property so far. Andy?
Well, since Lonnie, Selectman Tinio accompanied you there, Lonnie, do you have anything to add with what Tom just filled us in with?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for throwing this together too, guys. Missy, especially, I think you coordinated this. So I did go over there. Tom had been there. I was a little late, so I didn't actually do the walk down to the back, but Tom had already taken the photos and the videos, so that was helpful that I didn't have to trudge it with everybody back down there. It was pretty wet. So looking at it from the backside, aesthetically, it's an animal. Like looking at it from the backyard for the folks on Millville Road, right now it's just an ugly mess, right? You've got was just pushed over the edge. There's no retaining wall per se, and from the rain runoff, it's just ruts that are continually dump the silt just at the lower levels. The nice part is they do have some silt fence up. I don't know, I missed the first part of what Tom might have been talking about, so if I'm doubling up on anything, I apologize. So the silt fence is there, so it at least will buffer a little bit. However, if it continues without any type of intervention, we're looking at it'll just overpower the silt fence at some point. So I haven't yet met with the new conservation agent, but I do. I just had gotten her contact information this morning. So I will, and I had a crazy day, so I will reach out to her tomorrow and see if I can set up a quick meeting with her just to go over everything and then get her to take a site visit as well, because I'm sure she's going to want to see it with her own eyes. So the biggest things that I think we're seeing here, obviously from the Board of Health standpoint, you're looking at anything that happened in the facility, such as the restaurant. I don't want to go too far. You guys are handling all that. So and I didn't see it firsthand. So I'm sure you got everything you need going on there. From a legal standpoint, from the police department, whatever was being illegally done at a level there with, I'm not sure exactly the full details, but again, from what I've heard with the animals and whatnot, I'm sure that we have that avenue as well. And although we can't really do much, and I tried to reiterate this the other day, I don't know that there's much we can do legally from an aesthetics point of view. However, something needs to be done there. Mr. Erickson had visited the site and said that there's nothing from a standpoint of building, which is, I'm sure he's 100% right. But I think that where we're going to find the biggest teeth here is with conservation and with the Board of Health issues and violations that they had to rectify any and all situations we had. Conservation being that they can be the ones that maybe force a retaining wall or reduction of what is there, but it definitely needs to be sustained, at least backed up with some sort of wall, because it's just going to continue to wash away. So I will, like I said, I will get with conservation, the new agent on that, just to bring her up to speed. I have to get her from the IT side of things. I have to get her all hooked up with all the conservation stuff anyway. So I'll just make that a double meeting. Other than that, I don't have much more, other than, again, what I saw is it's not a fun backyard hill to be looking at from the Millville Road. Sorry, not Millville, from Level Street Road. Folks that live down there and having to look at this now.
All right, thank you. John Erickson, as a building inspector, Lonnie touched upon it, and you looked at it, and you feel that there is not a building department concern at this property with the height of the filling area. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Yeah, I did look at it. As far as the filling in, there's nothing from building or zoning that they're doing that's a violation of any code that I would enforce. But I think Lonnie's right on target from, my municipal experience, I think, the biggest factor in this or controlling entity would be the Conservation Commission. And I'm certainly not an expert on that, but and I don't know where the wetlands are exactly, other than I have seen the photos and seen it myself of that stream that runs through there. But I think the Wetlands Protection Act and the conservation rules have an awful lot of weight. I don't know how you pursue it, or the new conservation agent does, but I think that's the avenue that you want to be looking at. Anecdotally, so to speak, I was thinking about this meeting earlier today, and it's, if any one of us wanted to, do some filling of our yard or even create, a ski hill, there's nothing from a zoning or building perspective, in your own backyard for recreational use or for whatever use, there's nothing to prohibit that. But there's other factors, especially I'm not really familiar with the health factors such as, the water quality and things like that, but I have more of a cursory knowledge of the conservation issues, and I think that's probably the heaviest hitter right now. The one question I have, Tom mentioned there was a structure built and how it was built, and this is the first I'm hearing of a structure built. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you could maybe fill me in.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the best choice of words. I was referring to the mound that's back there, not actual structure in terms of a building, but the actual mound that was created with all the material that was brought in to build up the area.
Kind of what I thought. I just want to make sure I wasn't
Yep,
literally missing anything.
sure.
Thank you, John. Damon is on conservation. Could you touch upon the conservation concerns with this property, please?
I don't think Damon is here right now. I don't
Oh, I'm
see.
sorry. I thought I heard you. He acknowledged you.
So,
Okay. Is there anybody from conservation?
I don't think there's anybody from conservation. However, obviously Damon being my brother, we've actually talked about this property quite a bit. So his initial visit when it was first brought up was there wasn't a huge problem, but they continued to bring the material in. And so that's why obviously we need to go back there and check it again. And it's way different than that initial visit that my brother had made down there. And it's way more impactful now too. So now with the new agent has started, we can now, because and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, did you guys touch on this? Has there been pretty much a stop work order given from anybody over there, or they have just stopped on their own? Just wondering if we need something more formal. And Missy, I don't know if you see it. I just want to make sure that somebody saw that Mike Morelli does have his hand.
Yep, I was going to say something to Andy.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. My question was the last meeting we were at, there were comments about bags of trash and other foreign matter that was in the fill when it was being dumped over. My question is, what is the process to find out if this is clean fill, or to the point that was brought up initially about contamination of groundwater and wells? I mean, is there a way for us to get some kind of certificate or assurance that all of this material that was brought in doesn't have contaminants in it, and what are in those bags of trash? And what if that starts to leach out into the pond and into the groundwater? And honestly, I don't know if we get DEP involved, if that's even appropriate, or what the process is. But my concern is that, and I don't have any reason to believe this except what people have said about seeing foreign matter in the fill as it was being brought in. If there is any material in there, what do we do about it?
I'm not sure which one of the neighbors or both Kathleen or Dana or Mark, somebody had some pictures of material that was in there. Is that true, first of all? And if so, could you estimate how much quantity you saw as far as what was being dumped other than gravel? Neither one of you had pictures?
This is Kathleen. witnessed, I did not take pictures, but I did witness a man dumping 2 bags of, I don't know what the contents of them were, but he came over the cliff of the dirt mound and buried them almost all the way down with a hand hoe. So I can't say what was in those trash bags. They were, I'm guessing they were black contractor bags. That was about the size of them. I don't have pictures of those. As far as the fill is concerned, I don't know if it was certified as clean fill. There is debris in it, and I believe that Dana has pictures of that.
Okay, Dana, are you here? Missy, can you tell if Dana is here?
I don't see Dana, but Tom Fickner's raising his hand, and Tom Ryder has joined us.
Okay, thank you. Tom Fickner, please.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, just to kind of add to what Kathleen had pointed out with regard to the trash, one of the pictures I sent along, based on what Kathleen was able to describe location-wise, kind of points out the approximate location where these bags were apparently hand dug into the hill and were buried. It's the picture that, I don't know if anyone has these pictures up or are looking at them, but it's the picture that shows a white posted frame, almost looks like a soccer goalpost type of a piece of material, along with some brush to the right of it. And the bags were apparently buried in that approximate area. As Kathleen mentioned, it was done with a hand tool, so it wasn't as though a machine. They were buried, and the machine came in and covered a lot of dirt with any kind of a bulldozer. So I'd imagine they're probably not too deep into the hill. They could probably be uncovered in the same method. Andy?
Okay, thank you. My estimation with what we witnessed, Detective Erskine, myself, anybody else that was there, would probably be, and I'm going out on a limb, it would probably be a dead animal that they were disposing of, because there was quite a few there that needed to be cleaned up. That's just a guess. Have either of you at 14 or 16 gotten results back from your well test?
I had a retest done on Monday, so I'm waiting for those results. I believe it'll take a couple of weeks for the labs to get the results to me.
Was that Monday this week or last week?
That was Monday this week.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good. Tom Ryder, welcome to our meeting. Do you have something to add of what you witnessed at your site visit?
Yes, Tom Fickner's pictures are pretty much similar to what we saw when Al and I were out there. Yeah, there's a huge pile of fill that was brought in. I didn't see anything other than the gravel, so anything that's buried, we may need to contact the owner to have them, or maybe I think somebody mentioned about having DEP assist with this. Waste site cleanup might be a good contact, just to see what enforcement's role they can play if necessary. But essentially what the pictures show, I mean, it's a huge amount of fill was brought in. I couldn't quantify it from where we were located, but it's quite a bit.
Alrighty, thank you. Detective Erskine, you were a big part of what we went through to clean the farm out because of all the nastiness we found and saw the courts stepped in and the SPCA and everything. Do you have anything to add with what we're going through right now? I believe the farm is pretty much cleaned up. If I could be mistaken, could you touch on that, please, and let us know what's going on with that?
Yeah, I think you're correct in saying that the farm appears to have been cleaned up quite a bit because of rules and regulations set forth by MSPCA. So that's being handled. Like you said, there's going to be some matters at the court, but I know myself and the MSPCA have been doing follow-ups at that farm, and it's not the same farm it was when we went out that night. So it's getting better.
Very good, thank you. I don't know if everybody is aware of this or not, but a couple of points that I'd like to bring up in case that there's some misunderstandings. This property, although it was being used as a farm with animals, is not being taxed as such. It's assessed as commercial property, not farming. The planning board is aware of that. They spoke of it at their meeting. I did not witness the meeting. I just heard that they had a discussion about it. So that can, I don't know what weight that will bear on what we're facing with this filling issue. Also, the man who did all this work, both the reasons why we shut down the farm with the animals and the filling, is not the one who owns the property. There is a man from Watertown that actually physically owns the property. This man that has been running the farm is leasing the property. I don't know where we're at with that. Missy, has Mr. Netto been notified of all that's going on at his property?
We sent out the letter to him as far as what the Board of Health did with their investigation. I should have a phone number for him shortly, as he is going to be doing some work on another property. So as soon as I get that, I will let you guys know if someone from the board wants to call him. And the other thing is, I don't know if you would like to invite him to one of your Board of Health meetings, or if it's more of a conservation, I don't know. But he was sent a letter along with the gentleman who is leasing the property, as far as, a cease and desist as far as Board of Health issues. Andy?
All right, thank you. He has other properties in this town?
Yes.
How many?
9 Main Street, 1.
Okay, that's the right next to the church, the one that was kind of run down. He's going to be needing to do some work there, so we will be hearing from him.
Yes, the reason why I know that is because I got a septic plan that was dropped off by the installer, but the application was incomplete. I only received plans. I told the gentleman that I needed a construction permit and the soil forms and stuff before I could send it off to Tom Ryder. It's also going to be looking for I believe, a local upgrade. And this gentleman's very itchy to get it started, but I can't do that if I don't have a complete package. So just an FYI. And Tom Fickner has his hand up, Andy.
Okay, very good. That will be good to know that you will be in contact with him, and I would like to have him excuse me, join us at a meeting. Tom Fickner, please.
Yeah, I was just curious, since we were talking about communications that have gone out to the owner. In addition to the communication that the Board of Health issued in the letter, had any other communications gone out from any of the local groups, out of curiosity?
That's probably not something we'd be privy to if another board did. Do you know, Missy?
Lonnie has his hands up, so maybe he can speak to that.
Speak.
Yes. I'm sorry. I had my hand up for another reason. But I might be able to answer, Tom. What was the question again?
Oh, I was just curious, Lonnie, if we knew if any other groups might have had sent out a communication to the property owner in addition to the letter that came from the Board of Health?
I'm not sure that nothing came from our board as of yet. Conservation, I'm sure, will be sending something. And the reason that I was, so I'm sorry, I kind of was hearing, so the owner of the barn on Millville is also the owner of the house on Elm? Is that a multifamily?
He owns that property at 9 Main Street.
9 Main? Which property is that?
The
It's
rundown house, across from the rooming house, and it's the rundown house right next to the church.
The brown one?
I guess that's brown.
Yes.
It's like brownish gray.
So it's a little bit strange looking house. It's got like that overhang in the front, which would maybe be a porch, but that's so, I'm sorry, Missy, you said it was the brown one, right?
Yeah, it's a rundown. It's like you said, it's an odd shaped. It's right next to the church.
And then Mark Bacchino lives in the other house next?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so it might be worth too that when we discuss things with him that, look, he maybe want to even be more, maybe we suggest that he be a little bit more tactful in his tenants. That house is I believe, a pretty historical house, because I believe that they came in for a demo permit if it's the brown house. And if they're just letting it kind of fall apart, it's a pretty historical house for the town of Mendon. I can't give you details on why it is, but I know when I was talking to them in the historical meeting about it, it was there was a reason that they wanted to keep that house. So maybe something else we should talk to him about. If we can. I'm not sure it's legal for us to make those suggestions, but maybe we just let him know that, these are two. If the house in question is the right one, that's a very historical house from what I'm told. And that barn was a pretty prestigious barn in our community for a very long time when the Kellys owned it. So to see things going the way that they're going with these two properties, he may want to be just a little bit more tactful.
Thank you. John Erickson, could you please chime in on any legality that you may know of where we have an issue with one property at 106, but now we have knowledge that this man that owns the other property owns 9 Main, a different property, and is there any legality in we got to be careful with that, right? Because it's two separate situations. Am I correct?
Yeah, to my best knowledge, Andy, you're right. There's very few circumstances which could tie them together. One of them, which we've talked about, at least some of the members here, if taxes were owed at one property, it could limit their ability to get permits for another property or any other property that they own, but that doesn't seem to be relevant to this conversation today. I did want to circle back to what Mike had said earlier. I think, the DEP is something we do want to keep in mind, although after listening to the rest of the descriptions, I mean, I don't know anything about, if there's a potentially buried animal there and what that legality is. But if there were concerns about there being materials in that fill that were not allowed, DEP is the resource to enforce that. It doesn't sound like there is from what I'm hearing, but they do have jurisdiction over that, and they are very active in that. But I think, obviously my area of expertise is building and zoning, but from all I'm hearing, I think your best pursuit, and I mean, I know that the part of this is that this big pile is ugly, and as one of the magistrates at the court said, we don't do ugly. But I think, the effects of what they're doing on conservation and possibly water quality is what you or we want to pursue. And I would look for the Conservation Commission and their agent to, and I know Lonnie said he's going to meet with them this week, but I think that's what holds the most water here, no pun intended.
Lonnie, just to circle back, I heard you mention a conservation agent. I'm sorry, I'm not privy to that term. We have a new person that's going to be working and for enforcement for conservation with Mendon?
Yes, so we had Bill McHenry before, but Bill was served in multiple roles with the town as far as our housing agent, 40B, as well as the conservation clerk, if you will. He would make sure all the paperwork was done. So what we did is when he left in, let's call it June, and we thought we had somebody. They bailed on us, and so we went out search again. We actually found someone, and this person we're doing a little bit more because it's getting busier to the point that instead of having the conservation members themselves going out for these site visits, this person is more versed in the conservation laws and rules. Will also be the clerk handling all the filings, and will also go out and do site inspections. It doesn't mean that the members still can't do site inspections, but this person is going to be able to go out and be able to do more enforcement with situations like we have here. So talk about jumping right into the fire when she gets here. Welcome to Mendon.
Yeah, no kidding. Very good. That's good knowledge. I did not know that. That's good to know.
Indeed,
All right.
Kathleen has her hand up.
Kathleen, it's your turn.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but it's a personal feeling that we have that the tenant has a 5-year lease, is my understanding. And if the tenant is going for various permits from different boards, I feel as if there's no incentive for the property owner to act in a quick manner to resolve these issues if the tenant has permits to continue his business at the farm. We don't want to stop anyone from their livelihood, but if the tenant can't meet the lease agreement, then perhaps the tenant would be resolved of the lease agreement and the owner would have to act on these issues. I'm not really making myself clear, but I think you get my point.
I believe we do. Just first of all, what permits is the man pursuing currently? Do you know?
Well, I understood that he was looking for to run a produce, kind of like a farmer's market in the barn. I don't know if he's put any applications in for various permits to the town.
To my knowledge, they have not been turned in. This is where I will ask Danielle to please chime in, because Danielle and I were there together. We saw food and tables and menus on the wall, and he's had a cease and desist put on that part of it. I do not believe that there are any permits been applied for. Missy is the one that would have that answer, but Danielle, could you please chime in?
Sure. So yeah, to my knowledge, I don't believe that any requests for a permit have been filed. Last I spoke with Missy, he was interested in that produce stand. And if he's just looking to sell whole uncut produce, then that is not my jurisdiction. That's more so like Department of Ag. But as soon as he starts to manipulate the food in any way, like cut it, then obviously that's where, the Board of Health food permit comes in. My concern is, what type of food that he would be preparing, because when Andy and other members of the board and I observed what we saw, it did not look like a very sterile environment. So my concern would just be what he, if he is actually going to prep different food items, what they would be, and, the plan that he would have in place to ensure that, no contamination would take place.
Thank you. Missy, you were going to say something. Is somebody looking to speak?
Well, I have, Kathleen has her hand up and Lonnie does, but I just wanted to add that when they originally came in with the application, they did have the idea of having cooked food there and also the selling of livestock. So I did advise them that if they were, I'm not aware of any entities in Mendon that sell livestock. So that could possibly be a state license with the Department of Agriculture. And when I started talking about if they were going to prepare food and whatnot, that they would have to have certain certifications like allergy awareness, safe serve, depending what they were doing, anti-choking. And then they started backing right off of it. And a woman came back to drop off paperwork. And I said, what did you decide? And she said, he's just going to do the whole cut stuff. But at that time, I hadn't talked to Danielle to verify what a permit would be needed or not. And the woman that I spoke to, I asked, is there, if I call and we have questions and, will you be there to help translate? And she said, oh, no, I think we're going back to the Cape. And that was the last I heard.
Okay, was this the Brazilian family that was coming in to do that?
Yes.
Cowboy and his friends? Was this prior to the incident where we went out there, or is this afterwards?
Afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen?
I guess, just to reiterate my point, if permits are given or approved to the tenant of the owner of the farm, then I feel like there's no urgency on the owner of the farm to fix the issues that we have with the mound of dirt and the conservation. So if the tenant can't run his business, he goes back to the owner to put pressure on the owner to fix the issues. I don't know if that's legal, but that's, a personal feeling that we have. There's no leverage if the man is running his business as a tenant for the next 5 years and nothing is resolved.
Andy, John Erickson has his hand up.
John, speak, please. John,
you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I took the video off. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Missy. I just wanted to point out that most violations, or at least a lot, if not all, and I'm not sure, but with building and zoning, the violations, they track to the owner of the parcel. I suspect that would be the case if there's conservation issues as well. So to your point, Kathleen, about the owner not having much interest in these violations, I think that would not be the case. I think he would be ultimately held accountable for them. And again, I know that would be the case with zoning and building. And I think it would be the case with conservation and DEP. So I think there is a lot of motivation for him to have concern, him being the owner as well as the tenant. And again, that's I know I say this in a lot of meetings. I'm not qualified to give legal advice, but I'm just making an analogy to something that I am familiar with, and I think it may apply.
I understand.
Andy,
that's interesting, John. Thank you. So just so I understand, if Cowboy is this guy's nickname, so if Cowboy does something in violation where there are fines or whatever, the property owner is also held accountable in that situation, whatever the case may be? Is that correct? John?
I'm sorry. So if what I'm saying is in building and zoning, it's the owner is held accountable for what happens to their property. So I suspect that that's the same on conservation. I'm not sure what Cowboy is. I don't, I'm not, I've heard bits and pieces of what the violations were in the stop work orders. I'm not intimately familiar with them. With health, with health, it's probably different. I mean, if I own a building and somebody rents a restaurant space from me, I think, that tenant is accountable for whatever the violations are. But when it comes to land use, I'm pretty sure, I know, again, on building and zoning, it falls to the property owner, and I would suspect that on conservation, it does too.
That's very interesting. Thank you. Very enlightening. Thank you, John. Go ahead, Missy.
Lonnie has his hand up, and then Tom Ryder.
Tom, go ahead and go first, just in case what you're going to cover is what I was going to cover.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is that when an applicant's going in for a permit, there is an owner's sign off on it, essentially allowing that type of use because they still own the property, and also they become part of the application package. So for septic and I'm sure for conservation or notice of intents or request of determinations that involve somebody else's property. There could be an applicant, and the applicant could be the owner, or it could be somebody else, but the owner has a signature page. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Lonnie.
Did you have something else?
I just wanted to, back to Kathleen's point, that at this point, I don't believe we've issued any permits. I think everything's been just kind of willy-nilly over there, right? So I would also, and again, where it's legal, that we wouldn't be giving out any permits until, any violations that we do find over there need to be rectified before we'd be giving out any more permits. If there's truth in the statement that they're going back to the Cape, then I would, just to be, we're living in the same state and there's no need for the Cape to be punished by, if they're going to go down there and do the same thing, we might want to let the Board of Health know where they're going. So to keep an eye out, or everybody to keep an eye out. So heck, if that's true, then, we just got a matter of some cleanup to do. Hopefully that the owner will do that. But again, let's get the information from the conservation agent first to find out exactly where we stand.
Thank you. Kathleen, just to be clear, this gentleman had no permits to operate as he was operating. He did not come forward to run his business the way he was. So that's pretty much why, excuse me, he was shut down. And he also, I believe, has another place up in Tewksbury. I don't know to what end his business is up there, but Detective Erskine may be able to fill us in on that. Are you privy to what he's doing in Tewksbury? Nick? Okay. Again, it's my understanding, Kathleen, that there were no permits, so he was operating illegally, and that's why he's been shut down. I don't imagine he is going to come forward for any more permitting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any more comments or concerns?
AJ, when you get a chance, thank you.
Alan, I apologize. I forgot you were here. Your turn. Sorry.
Not a problem. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quick things. I'll shoot them all out there, and then people can address them or comment on them as they want. One thing that I was thinking about is I didn't know if where this had been an equestrian center for many, many years, maybe since its initial conception, long before I boarded horses there. I didn't know if change of use came into play. The next thing is when I toured the property with Tom Ryder, and resident from 14 and 16 Lovell Street, I did see some green crushed sewer pipe mixed into the fill. Not a large amount by any means, but I did see some. Next, that property that this gentleman owns on Main Street, there's been a septic tank sitting in the backyard for at least a week and a half that I can remember. And most recently, an excavator showed up. So that may be of concern. Another thing is the day that I toured the property, I did double check with Missy and convey Alexander that applications were taken, but nothing had been completed. So no inspections had been done, no permits had been issued. And then lastly, the issue of the crushed pipe that has not been repaired because there was so much silt in the area that they had dug, the pit that they had dug, I couldn't even see the end of this pipe. But it's my understanding that this pipe takes water from Millville Road and Lovell Street, funnels it into a pond on Mrs. Alexander's property, and then this pipe would lead to the swamp, which is now crushed. I'm done. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alan. Well, if that is the case, that would certainly be an issue for conservation.
Yes, so Alan, real quick, I did see that as well. Saw where the pipe is. The way that they've got it set up now, it's slowly draining out now. So it's coming, but it's definitely not the way it's supposed to be. My brother had also noticed that when he was there. They were already supposed to have fixed that, but that will be brought up with the conservation agent as well to get that repaired as well.
Alan, a quick question. The pipe that you talk about, is it possible that that pipe came in with the fill from an off-site location wherever they were loading this material?
The green saw pipe that was crushed, that's my assumption. And like I said, it wasn't a large amount, but that's all I could see that was exposed. So that's my assumption. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? We've covered quite a bit. I have nothing myself at this time to add. Missy, did you say Chief Kersey or Chief Kessler were here?
Chief Kersey is here, but Chief Kessler was unable to attend, but I believe he would be more concerned on what type of business, if I remember his email off the top of my head, what type of business this would be and whether or not a sprinkler system would be needed. So he did say he would touch back with us at a later date, but that was one of his concerns. And I think he's also concerned that on this property, we have the business with the barns and everything, but also included in this property is a dilapidated home that he also had some concerns about, which remember it was 2013, I think Jean told me. It used to be 106 was the barns, and then 108 was a single family home. That was then, those lots were then joined together. And my understanding is no one is living in the house, but it's definitely something that I don't know if it's a hazard or not. Andy?
Also, at that time when we reviewed that situation, it's a 2-bedroom septic system, and they have 9 people registered at the town clerk's office. Is that correct, Missy?
Correct. It was supposed to be one apartment, I believe, with 2 bedrooms. The people living there had to get a residency letter to get their kids into the school. So I asked Ellen if she could let me know how many people were living there, and I believe it was 8. So the septic system could be at risk.
Yeah.
So that might be another avenue you guys on your own would want to, formulate a letter or whatever as far as the septic system, because I don't know if there's any portable toilets, but even if you're going for what is a design, and Tom Ryder can correct me, but if you're going from a design thinking of 2 bedrooms, and then you've got 8 people for an undersized system, that could also create an issue. Andy?
Absolutely, it could. And when Danielle and I and Officer Peschel walked the upper loft area in the upper barn, we witnessed and have pictures of mattresses and lamps and living quarters in 2 rooms there. So they're overloading this place. John Erickson, I've got a question for you. As far as the house beside 106, the one that Missy just mentioned, that has been vacant for many, many years. When we walked around there that day, it is in dire straits. Is that something that, if it hasn't been, can that be condemned by the building department?
Thank you, Andy. I think I took myself off mute this time. Yeah, it is. I was just jotting down some notes. This is the first I've heard of complaints of the, the condition of the structures. Driving by, I didn't focus on that. But yeah, if the house is vacant, it's something that could be deemed unsafe. If it's in that type of condition. And similar with the barn. Again, most of the concerns I had heard until this point was just with the use and the landfill. So it's, something I did jot down. I'll go and put my eyes on that this week and get back with a more detailed assessment of what the condition is and what the options are, if there are options to take any action.
Thank you very much.
And also, what is the barn being used for at this point? I think Alan mentioned the change of use, because I thought it was, an agricultural use for many years.
Well, if it's being zoned commercial, which according to Gene it is, and is that a change of use if it's being used for housing of animals?
Well, no, assuming it's, well, I think there's 2 things there. The size of the property probably allows by statute agricultural use, which is typically over 5 acres in any town. I could look into more details. It just happens to be that type of parcel in a commercial zone. And I think that would be, what its use was for almost forever. The change of use would be it's a commercial zone. You want to take this barn and turn it into, I don't know, say a restaurant. Then that's a change of use. That's going to trigger, site plan review and a host of other permits and reviews.
Andy?
Yes, 1 second. Alan Greenberg, is that the question that you were asking as far as change of use?
Yes, only because, as Mrs. Alexander pointed out, if permits are issued and this gentleman is allowed to operate without remedying the situation, we may never get a remedy. Also, John Erickson, just to let you know, and you can confirm this with the police department, to my memory, I don't know how many years ago it was, it could be 10 years have passed or more. The police did use that house for some sort of an exercise. I have been in that house when the heating system failed and boiled over and just made a disaster out of the place. So it might look a lot better on the outside than it does on the inside. Just a heads up. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Missy?
I just want to let you know that I did talk to Gene about how much acreage this property has, and it doesn't qualify for automatic agricultural use. It has, I think, 2.5 acres.
All righty then, thank you. So I know Mendon is a farming community. Is that in any kind of violation? I know it's probably grandfathered because of the Kellys, and maybe even prior to that, having the animals and the farms there. Do you know anything about?
Hold on, can I?
Go ahead, Lily.
I think we're just talking about 2 different things here, sorry. About zoning it agricultural, meaning that their taxes would be lower, and actually having animals in a barn is two different things. I just don't want that, if that's what we're trying to get lost on there. Zoning a piece of property agricultural, like Missy was saying, requires a certain amount of acreage to even qualify. Then it goes into, if you want to call it 61A, which in turn their taxes go down, such as say like the Vincent's Fields. I'm pretty sure all that is in 61A. And then I believe when they want to pull out of 61A, the town has the right to purchase it, and then taxes back a certain amount of time need to be paid. So I want to say like 2 years or 3 years, something, they have to go back and pay those taxes. Don't quote me on actual timeframes, but that's the way I understand how that works. So I just don't want to get any confusion on whether or not you're allowed to have animals on your property or even board horses and be in that type of zoning.
Okay, thank you. But for the 61A, I'm very familiar with that because I thought about it here and was actually approved. It's the town has first right of refusal. If you have a bona fide offer from someone, you can go to the town and say, this is what I've been offered, and they can make the decision yes or no. Yes or no. And if in fact you do sell it, it's 10 years, unless it's changed. It was 10 years in arrears of the tax difference. Not that it really matters for this conversation. Anybody else currently have anything, please? All righty.
Andy, Kathleen has a question.
Kathleen?
I just want to thank all of you for pulling this meeting together to address our concerns. I think it'll be beneficial going forward that we're all on the same page, and I just want to thank you for doing this.
All righty. Lonnie, I have a question for you, and I don't know if it's for you or maybe.
Go ahead.
Will someone reach out to DEP and tell them what we're going through and see if there's any interest in helping us in this situation?
I will bring that up. I will bring that up to the conservation agent. I'm sure that if there's any DEP issues, she'll be contacting them right away. Even if it's just a question of what we can do, if anything.
Wonderful, thank you. That answers my question. Okay. I think we're all set here. If everybody else is all set.
Andy,
Missy,
I need you to figure out your next meeting.
you tell me.
I'm looking at the 20th and the 27th. What works for the three of you?
I'm good with either. Tom Fickner.
Yeah, either is fine with me.
Alan Greenberg.
I can go either date as long as it's 7 o'clock.
Okay.
All
Your
righty.
choice.
My choice, huh? All right, I'm gonna go with the 20th then.
You're the boss.
No, I'm not. All righty. That's all I had on your agenda for tonight. I mean, I did have, this normal stuff that, unforeseen 48 hours and everything. So unless you guys have anything else for myself or any of the guests on tonight, I will, I would be looking for someone to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Tom?
I did have just a follow-up question, Missy, with regard to the status of a residential kitchen topic that we've been talking about for a while.
Mm-hmm.
One second, please. I just want to let everybody know that's been here for 106 Millville Road. We're going to have a conversation about a different subject. I would like to thank everyone for their time, and we will talk to everyone soon. You can stay on the meeting if you'd like, or you can move on because we're going to talk some Board of Health stuff. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All
So
right.
you're asking about residential kitchens?
Yes, yeah, there was something that came through. I saw that John confirmed for us.
Yes, so as far as the residential kitchen, we were talking about whether or not it would need a special permit or, I forget what it was. And he explained to me that unless it was like an accessory item, they're doing it all in their existing kitchen. So it would be like just a part of the house, so they wouldn't need to have that. John, if you're still on, if you want to answer that, that would be awesome.
Thank you, Missy. I am still on, and I hung on as soon as I heard residential kitchen. I was about to hit the X, but what I had said is, if it was a separate kitchen used for preparing a food that's going to be sold, it certainly needs a home occupation permit, and it needs to fall within the rules and regulations for that. And if it's just their regular kitchen that they use for their household, everyday cooking, then the question of whether or not they need a home occupation really depends on what the scope of activities are. I mean, if they're baking cookies once a week and bringing them someplace, do they need it? I'd say no. If they're baking them and having, a couple customers a day come to the house and get it, pick them up, then I would say they do need a home occupation. And it doesn't seem like, the situations that I've discussed with Missy, that there would be anything to preclude them from getting a home occupation. So they should probably just apply and get one.
How is that, where's the origin of that particular type of permit, John, generated?
That's applied through through our office at the building department.
Through building, okay.
Yeah, and that's allowed by there's a section of the zoning bylaw that addresses it on what can and can't be issued, and some would be issued by a special permit.
Okay.
I don't have the details. And for the purpose of my conversation with Missy, I don't think the details were really urgent to go through. I'd have to look and see if the special permit can be just issued by me or if it has to go to the zoning board. There's some that are allowed and some that are, and others that would have to go to, some that are allowed by right I can just issue, and some that would have to go to the zoning board. Zoning or planning, honestly, I don't remember. I'd have to look it up, which I could do.
Yeah, if you're able to kind of follow through. I know we've had a couple of folks, at least one in particular, that have been trying to do the right thing. They've held off on their products for a bit. Both of them were discovered by the Board of Health because of advertising that they do out on Facebook. And each of the two entities that I'm familiar with, they seem to be involved with cake, dessert types of products that they advertise out for sale to the public. To the extent of the quantity and the extent of the operation, I'm not sure, but like I said, we've had one of the two anyway that have been really tried pretty hard to be compliant, and I'm just trying to make sure we can kind of help in supporting their due diligence and just trying to give us what we look for on the town side. Just didn't want to, see them held up, inadvertently. If there's something that we can do to help them kind of get back into the production side of things.
Yeah, so I just pulled out, I had it here because I didn't know if I was going to need it tonight for the other topic, but so the zoning bylaw allows for home occupation. Some activities just by right that I could issue the permit for, and some need a special permit from the planning board. I know I said zoning board a couple of times, but it's planning board. And there's a list of regulations I can go through, but some of the pertinent ones are no more than 25% of the floor area, and a maximum of 400 square feet to the principal residence shall be used, and a typical home kitchen would definitely fall within those parameters. Not more than one person who's not a member of the household is employed. No display of signage. Traffic generated should not exceed volumes normally expected. So that's why you have to look at each, and there's a couple more, and I can look closer into this with Missy. But there's, each situation has to be evaluated sort of uniquely.
Okay, yeah, if we're able to just kind of pursue what we, need to, and just, I didn't know if at this point there's any advice. I know I've had to reach out directly from one of the entities. At this point, would it be a case where we'd be looking to reach back out to them to tell them where they're at or what their needs need to be once we've investigated what's required?
Why don't I talk deeper with this, deeper about this with Missy tomorrow and get some contact information? I can, well, Missy can fill me in, more than she has, which has been, substantial amount, and I can then meet or talk to the, the resident that's looking to engage in this operation and find out more details, and I can kind of put together a memo of whatever's applicable.
That'd be great. That'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay.
So I just want to circle back with that. I'm sorry, Andy. So there were issues as far as the permit to begin with. I've been communicating back and forth with Danielle. These two particular residential kitchens were being run by underage kids. The one that Tom is particularly talking about, that I have been in touch with the mother with, the mom has actually taken the certifications that is required. The mom has also redone the application, which I'll be sending off to Danielle for her review. And then our next step would be to have Danielle do her inspection. That being said, one of the questions that John had sent to me was, how like foot traffic and stuff. So I asked them, do you deliver or they come? And the people come to the house to pick up the baked goods. Unlike we actually have a total of 3 residential kitchens that are currently right now being used. And most of them, if not all 3 of them, they bring the product to the restaurant or I'm sorry, to the customer. So that's the latest and greatest that I have on that particular regards with residential kitchens. Andy?
John, just a quick question. All that information that you just came up with that is in the planning board, is that local to the town of Mendon, first of all, and is that in the zoning board bylaws that if Tom had questions, he could look it up directly there?
Yes, that's right in the town of Mendon zoning bylaws.
There you go, Tom.
It's the use regulation schedule, and it's table A with footnotes in section, I think it's 3. Pretty sure it's section 3, but it should be easy to find.
Yeah, no need to go too deep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, it's article 3, the use regulations, and it's table A. And when you read it, if there's an asterisk, there's a corresponding footnote that goes with it a couple pages later.
Great, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
My pleasure.
All righty. Does that answer your questions, Tom?
Oh, it does. Yep.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, John. Alan, do you have anything at this time?
The only comment I have is on number 9 Main Street. Do we need to be concerned that there's a septic tank sitting there and an excavator? And the other thing is Mr. Meehan's property on Route 16. I drove by within the last 10 days and there are salon signs in the window and there were 2 cars in the parking lot. I didn't know what the status was on that property. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go, Missy.
So, okay, Tom Ryder has his hand up, but I just want to answer one of the things. As far as regards to 9 Main Street, I received the plans, but the application was incomplete. But the installer who's just recently come in and applied for an installer's license did tell me that he is getting the supplies, so to speak, ready for when the plan is approved and his license has been approved. I did let him know that he's not to start it until he has a approved plan from Tom Ryder, but that it also has, from what I could tell on the plan, a local upgrade request. And I told him that that would have to go before the board. So he's got to go through Tom, and then once Tom approves it, he's got to go through you guys. So, and then I would have Tom answer as far as 1 Nipmunk Drive.
Very good. 1 second, Tom. Missy, first of all, who is the installer that's applying, and are they local?
They're actually, hold on, let me grab the paperwork. Ugh. It's a CNN Construction Group out of Bellingham, Caesar Elves. He's never been licensed in Mendon before. I told him we need copies of current licenses. He came and brought me the town of Bellingham and the town of Milford. So I was going to contact Bruce Wilson, who is the Board of Health agent in Bellingham, and then I would contact Jackie over in Milford to find out what their, because he only has two permits, and he's never installed in Mendon before. But his permit is here available for you guys to review and sign when you have a chance.
Okay, thank you. Who's the engineer, design engineer, do you know?
Seth LaJoy.
Okay, thank you. Tom Ryder was at 1 Nipmuc Drive today, all by himself. Nobody showed up. Go ahead, Tom, your turn.
Yeah. Yes, I was there. But I also want to mention, soil testing was conducted over on Main Street. And there was some like drainage swales, like, on the lot. It seems like an old, high groundwater. There's some challenges that you're gonna have to overcome. So yeah, likely a local upgrade. I haven't talked to Seth LaJoy about it recently, but he knows the issues because he was doing the soil evaluation too. One Nipmunk, I was in the parking lot, and probably around 9:30, 10 o'clock, traffic started to come in. It looked like people who were working on the inside. Didn't look like customers. Looked like potentially people setting up shop or getting it ready. So I did not approach them. I didn't ask them what they're doing, but I wanted to follow up with the board, and also with this is the John. What's his name? John Nienhart.
John Nenna.
Yeah, he said he was going to be following up with the with the new septic system plan, and the soil testing was supposed to be part of it. They're going to have to reschedule, but they're also going to have to. They also have some challenges too, because the lot size is too small for more than 2 chairs. So if they're going to use it for 2 chairs, perhaps it could work. But I think they really kind of need to prove and show what they're doing.
How many chairs were proposed, Tom, originally?
Oh, I think I saw 10.
Okay.
It was a sketch too. It was kind of like, this is what we're doing, and it was not necessarily 10. They had like a massage table. They had like a pedicure areas and hair salon areas. So it was kind of like a mishmash of everything. But I think when I looked at the sizing, they could max out as with 2. And this is something probably I thought the zoning the site plan review was only for like an office, so I'm not sure if it's a change of use too. So I think that's another challenge. They might need to go back, or at least talk to the building department on this too.
So they'll have to make a drastic adjustment, it sounds like.
Yeah, they're gonna have to increase the size of the system, and then they're gonna have to do some legal description of abutting land. They're gonna have to show for nitrogen aggregation, which is you can have you need 10,000 square feet per every 110 gallons per day of discharge. So, and I think it's a pretty small lot. So they're limited to like 220 right now. But I don't know the status right now. So, sorry, that's all I have.
Yeah.
The office that we're talking about, that is 1 Nipmuc Drive?
Yes, it is. It was originally it was supposed to be like a facilities showcase type thing. Yeah, you remember.
What is the number of the house beside there on the hill between there and Benny's property?
3,
And Benny was 5?
7.
Galan's old house? Okay,
Yep.
I could have sworn his was 1. Okay, thank you. Where on the property are they doing perk tests, Tom, to enlarge that system?
They would have to follow up by going adjacent to where the existing septic is. So it'll be, if you're looking at the structure, it would have to be on the right. There's really not a lot of room. I don't know how they're going to do it.
That's from Route 16 you're talking about, looking at the front door?
Yes, yeah.
That little system is surrounded by, excuse me, a concrete wall, isn't it?
It's a garden wall. They probably could tear it down and build another one if they had to.
Does that, I lost it. I forget. Oh, has there been a local upgrade on that system so far? Where it currently stands with the use that it was going to be used for with the office? Was there a local upgrade at that time?
I don't think so because it was new construction.
Right, thank you. Good point. So if they're going to add on to it, Tom, can they do a local upgrade?
No.
Because it's
No,
still.
I mean, they would have to ask for a variance, and with the variance, you'd have to prove that it's manifestly unjust, and that there's going to be absolutely nothing they can do with the property when they already have a structure on there. So it's there is some area off to the right side of the property. It kind of juts out a little bit, so they may be able to get a few more trenches, but they're still limited. It's
a lot
still,
of ledge right there.
Yeah, there is ledge as you go to the right. You're correct. Yeah.
Is a tight tank allowable for this type of use?
No, not for sanitary wastewater.
Okay. Gonna be interesting.
Andy, John Erickson has his hand up.
Your turn, John.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if you thought it was okay if I jumped off the meeting now, if it's going to be more, Board of Health, strictly Board of Health, or if you thought I should hang around.
I think we're good, John. Thank you very much for joining us.
John, I'm just wondering if this one, they're going to come back to talk to you about this one. I don't know if this is something that you'll be seeing.
This 1 Nipmuc?
Yeah.
I remember something about this from a few months ago, but I need to refresh myself. I know they had a permit in that was held up at one point. I don't know where that stands. So again, similar to before, I made some notes. I'm going to look into that later this week, but I don't have anything concrete that I can tell you that I remember about it.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you all.
All righty.
Just Danielle, do you have anything to add? Sorry, Andy, if she's still here.
No, nothing further to add.
Danielle, I've got a question for you. Are you familiar, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer because I think we had this conversation, Missy and I. Are you familiar with, Missy, what's the program that you and I were discussing this morning, on the iPad?
For the iPad program, the Food Code Pro or Housing Code Pro?
Yes. Yep. Yes, I am. One of the towns I serviced did use it, so I do have some familiarity.
Awesome, because we're getting it and we just want to make sure someone knows how to use it. Very good. Thank you.
Love it. Excited.
Very good. All right. Thank you for joining us, Danielle.
Thank you
Thanks,
all. Have a good
Danielle.
night.
Good night. Tom, did you have any more questions at this time?
I am good, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan?
I'm good, thank you.
Missy?
Not a question. It's more of just want to give you guys an FYI that I will not be in the office tomorrow. I have a meeting at Region 2. It's going to be our first in-person meeting, and then I'm going to take the rest of the afternoon off. I won't be back until Wednesday, October 13th. I'm going to go see my son's new home that he's buying tomorrow. And then also wanted to let you know that I will be out of the office October 21st and October 25th. There's a Thursday and a Monday.
Could you please, Missy, send John Erickson an email and let him know that you will not be in the office tomorrow? I don't know if he'll have time, but he had made mention of reaching out to you tomorrow to get some of that information. And I
Sure.
forgot. I knew that you weren't. Go ahead.
If he does, I have changed the voicemail. I have did put an automatic response on my email, but I will reach out to him right now just to give him the heads up.
Thank you. Tom, do I have a motion, please?
Oh, hold a second, Andy.
Go ahead, Tom.
While we're talking about vacations, I just want to make sure that Missy knows too that the last 2 weeks in October, just Monday through Wednesday, I'm going to be out of state. So just 18th, 19th, and 20th, and the 25th, 26th, and 27th. But I'll still be available. But I just won't be able to do any inspections those days.
Very good. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. I'll send you an email, Missy.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, Tom Fickner, could I have a motion, please?
Certainly. I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Alan? Second. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, and I'll
Thank
talk
you
to you all on the 20th.
See ya.
Good night, all.
Good night.